For ICS 375, current events and movements, you'll be asked to come up with 4 current events for 6 of the 8 weeks. And those 4 current events, sometimes it's hard to know which ones are the most strategic or significant. So I want to point you towards this resource. It's online. It's called the Yale Global Online magazine. I use this on a weekly basis to help me figure out what's going on, what's the most strategic news items out there. We've picked 8 different topics to discuss in class, and they have a little bit different selection of topics, but I think they're fairly similar. And what I like about the magazine and how I think it helps you is that they often have really current news items tied to that. They'll have their own sort of academic resources that they made papers or presentations they put together, but then they'll also have these news items. And some of these will point you toward current events that you can look at for your CER. So just as a help, let me go through real quickly their topics. The first one they have is economy. Their definition: the global economy thrives on globalization and the increasing interdependence of finance, production, consumption, and trade. Such integration has reduced poverty, yet varying national policies, along with ever-increasing speed of transactions and market news, have also contributed to imbalances, both among nations and within. Regulations often do not keep pace in managing cross-border debt, foreign direct investment, corporate practices, tax codes, or economic bubbles. The Eurozone crisis and the U.S. subprime mortgage crisis have demonstrated that one nation's problems and panic can spread like wildfire. Nations must combine a competitive spirit with cooperation to achieve stable economic growth and sustainable prosperity. Now, this speaks to sort of their worldview, right? These are the things that they consider significant and important within the economy. I think they're helpful definitions. You may have a little different take on it. That's perfectly fine. If you look at the news items, the major news item in the economy is really the Argentine default, and they've got this news article from Gateway House that they refer to, and they have a couple of other things about the companies fearing radical turn in Argentina from the Financial Times. And so Argentina is kind of a big deal, and then they look at other issues as well. This is sort of a good way for you to if you're looking at a news source, you're thinking, what should I choose? Well, look what they've chosen. What are the things that are most significant for them? Look at environment. Environment is the Earth's environment is the source of economic, social, cultural activities, with nature shaping human life for the centuries. The rapid growth in the world population, from 1 billion in 1830 to 7 billion today, add pressures for air quality, oceans, land use, and resources as basic as water. Awareness is building about over-reliance on fossil fuels, how carbon and other emissions contribute to global warming, and volatile weather. Every industry requires energy, and cross-border industrialization, transportation, and other economic activities contribute to environmental degradation. Yet, globalization also spurs awareness and activism over the need for global cooperation and standards to promote sustainability and environmental protection. The first week we're talking about the environment, but we're doing it from a little bit different perspective, because we're sort of putting energy and water together and talking about those resources. And later on we'll talk about climate change, because these are pretty significant topics for the days in which we live. You can see the news items they've covered there. From Vox is sort of a strange news feed kind of thing, but they have a study about poaching African elephants. Global warming is kind of the big thing, but they also have different topics as well. And one of the things about their attitudes to water in South Asia article from, I say Chatham House, I don't know how you say it, water management is not enough with population set to grow by 30%. I think that speaks a little bit too to what we're reading about California. And, we would love for to not use our sprinklers as much, but that's not just, that in itself isn't going to be enough. So maybe there's news articles about that type of issue with the current week that we're looking at. Gender issues, again, we've not chosen this as a specific topic, but it's a really popular topic for the media, especially, and they've tied the gender issue with the Boko Haram story in Nigeria from Al Jazeera. I think we'll look at it more with Christoph's book. We'll look at women's issues similar to that, especially in relation to what's happening with human trafficking and those type of issues. Globalization, that's sort of a theme, I guess, really for this magazine in general. They say debate abounds over whether globalization is good or bad for the individual, the family, the nation, and the world. That's really important, and that's true, but whether we think it's good or bad. It's really significant one way or the other. They want to talk about that generally, from the United States perspective here. But one of the things I think that it points to, I think the story in Reuters have clashes with Russia point to globalization's end. I'm not exactly sure that's the right analysis, but it definitely points to the significance of globalization. What's happening in Ukraine is drawing the whole world on having the whole world draw sides, really. Looking at health, their definition: since human migrations began, germs have traveled with people, animals, and traded goods. And interconnected and mobile world diseases such as HIV/AIDS and SARS can spread rapidly. Yet international cooperation through agencies such as the WHO also allows for collective response. Obviously, the big story in health is Ebola, and they have the Wall Street Journal article, and I think they have a couple of other articles. They went on MERS from a couple of months ago. This is a trending topic with health, generally speaking, around different seasons. And so we'll have this Ebola thing going on right now, and then there may be something else that comes. And so we will look at health. Labor, jobs are the lifeblood for national economies and family budgets. We look at this more within the economy idea. We don't have a separate one for labor or trade like they do. Part of it is just because some of the issues that they're dealing with are more, for us, a little more driven to economy, like the New York Times story on U.S. companies that head to Mexico. There's more interesting stories out there. I think you'll find about China opening factories in Africa. That's much more interesting to me. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. Politics. We'll do a little bit about freedom and politics. And it's a obviously important issue, but it can be really, sort of ticky-tack kind of thing, and it's all about getting elected. So elections, like in Afghanistan, that's pretty significant. But midterm elections here in America, it's sort of just it seems a bit childish at times. What's happening in Pakistan right now, they're trying to cover, they cover what Modi is talking about, the president of India, but there was the coup in Thailand, but then currently in Islamabad, there's a massive rally where the losing party or the minority party is trying to get the majority party to resign, which certainly they don't want to do, and so there's been a few deaths recently. So this is a very important topic going on today in different parts of the world. Science and technology, innovation is a source of economic prosperity and global progress. We live in a time of incredible science and technology, so you can kind of see that. Their articles aren't that interesting right now to me, but we don't deal with this as a separate thing, but I think it has a way of kind of slipping into all of our different topics. Security and terrorism, we'll talk about that from kind of a freedom perspective. We'll talk, what's going on in the world. The most difficult thing to understand really is all the wars and battles going on in the Middle East. But Ukraine is the other one. And so security and terrorism, they say the links between security and globalization were highlighted by the 2001 terrorist attack on New York City and Washington, D.C., and the subsequent long wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Lingering poverty and inequality, religious extremism, and war can sow discontent and resentment, as unprecedented global mobility lends access to education and travel in other countries. We'll talk a little bit more about migrants, and we'll talk about that impact that it's having on the world, and that often relates to security and terrorism. People that are coming to America as refugees, generally from the Middle East, are coming because of threats on their life, and also from Latin America. People are able to come to America because of that. So it does impact the world globally. The movement of people and security kind of pushes people to move. You'll look at they cover Ukraine and the Middle East with some of their articles, and I think what's happening in Libya right now is really a hot button topic also. Society and culture. Globalization wields powerful influence over societies and cultures. Obviously, we have our own worldview in America, but what we want to do is look at their cultures. This is a intercultural studies course, and we do that in a lot of different ways, but mainly it's through getting those other news sources. So the first week here, you're looking at California sources. There's not such a large divide between North and Southern California and Northern California, but there is a definite different opinion as you move on to other places in the world in the next few weeks. So it's really good to keep that in mind. And that impacts a lot of what we talk about with women's issues and gender issues. Trade, then they cover as readily measurable aspects of globalization as the increasing exchange of capital products and services across national boundaries. And that's real important, obviously. Again, this is about the economy more so. We'll cover it more in that way, but they cover a lot of different angles on that, and they use the trade issue is kind of like it's kind of a personal issue for some people, so it's always something we try to be careful in how we present things. And you'll run across a lot of stories overseas, probably more than you will in America, about free trade, or about trade between countries, or about trade taking advantage of other countries, right? So you'll see that. I was in North Vietnam this summer, and I came just right after the big riots of the Vietnamese marketplace against Chinese companies there in the country because of this battle over oil in the offshore islands near both Vietnam and China. And it was a really instructional time for me. I got to see a little bit of that conflict that I didn't really even know existed. But trade is for us in America, we almost dominate it. We feel like that, but in some places they feel very vulnerable, and so this is something that will often come up, and we usually will deal with this in the section on economy. Okay, so that's some help. I hope Yale Global is a help for you. So this first week, as you're looking to figure out which news events to choose from the different California news sources, you can look at any of the topics. Their topics are fine. You can also just you can look at the courses the topics that we've outlined for the course. They're just a little bit different verbiage, but it's a similar thing. So these are the major trends, major global movements that we want to look at. And so look for current events that are sort of similar to what you see here, but from that local perspective. I hope this helps. I look forward to seeing you in class in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much.